I think the lessons they can learn from the big guys is the investment that they take in their workforce and not getting themselves into bad contracts and bad projects. And I think the biggest mistake that some of the smaller contractors get into is they take on the risk of not knowing how much cash they actually need to deliver that work. I think right now you're seeing some of the bigger contractors who are doing some of the private work are now dipping their toe into some of these continuing contracts just to get their foot in the door. If you're going to take that next step, the two things that you have to do immediately: invest in safety, invest in workforce development, get your people right. And that goes from a lot of different things. Like you said, get your finances in order, make sure that you're reinvesting into benefit programs for your workers, because right now, if you're not investing in your workers, somebody else will, and your workers will go to where people are going to invest in them. You're only as good as your last project, and you have to continue to create a level of being dependable, knowing that you're a company that is going to be a good partner on a job site, because construction is the biggest team sport around. The beauty about our industry is you can learn, you can create these relationships, because it is the biggest relationship business out there. And knowing the contractors you want to be like is the best way to grow your company and kind of mirror some of the things that they're doing. I think technology is changing so fast, and because of our labor shortage, you're seeing an adoption of technology at a pretty rapid pace in our industry. And our industry has never been one to adopt technology at a rapid pace, but we're having to do so out of necessity.
Welcome, everybody, to the Mobilization Mindset. My name is Scott Peper, founder and CEO of Mobilization Funding, and today we are going to be talking about the construction trends leading us into 2026. I have Steve Cona, President and CEO of Associated Builders and Contractors of Florida, here with me today to talk about, well, Florida is one of the hottest trending states in the nation, but the principles and things that happen here happen across the nation. And what we're going to touch on today is what are the best construction contractors doing at each level: subcontractors, in the trades, the general contractors. What types of projects are being built? How are those being executed? What you're going to get from this is exactly what you can do in your business to help you be best prepared, not only for 2026, but to thrive in 2026 and beyond. Because these trends are real, they're happening now, and you can be successful in them. Steve, welcome.
Hey, Scott, thanks for having me.
I love it, man. I'm excited to get into this. And as we were talking off camera beforehand, I really want people to pull out of this episode the things they can really do and implement. And when in a general theme you and I touch on is like, what are the best of the best companies doing?
Right.
And why can some of these companies that might not be as farther along in the construction game or tenure in business as they think they are, why they can still be doing the same things and have massive success?
Yeah, I think you see right now in our market, the companies who are uberly successful are investing in their workforce, are doing the things that need to be done. They're not signing bad contracts. They know what their blind spots are. I think that the companies that you see that are always kind of stagnant and kind of the small to mid-size that don't ever take that next step, I think the lessons they can learn from the big guys is the investment that they take in their workforce and not getting themselves into bad contracts and bad projects.
Yeah. So I'll play the role of the subcontractor. Like, well, that's easy if you have the margins that the GCs do and you have the profit and all that. You can't invest in your workforce if you're at these margins and these dollars and our retention, and we can't get paid our retention. So what would you?
Well, and I think the contractors who are doing things the right way will tell you that they're not in their position because of how smart they are, but how good their workforce is and how skilled they are. And the only reason you get that way is that you have to heavily invest in that workforce. You have to take care of your people. You have to train them. You have to grow them because there's no unemployed electricians or plumbers out there. So you have to actually bring them in, develop them, put them in apprenticeship programs. Those are the things that you have to do and invest, because when you have that labor force, that commodity there, you can take on bigger projects. You have the ability to do more things when you have a skilled workforce that is going to deliver on those contracts that you signed.
Yeah, and I think the way you get to that investment is if we back up a step, you have to have a long-term focus in mind.
Right.
You can't become the size company you want to be in the next 12 months. It's like, how are you going to get there in the next 5 to 10 years? And so you start piece by piece, like you have to do profitable work. Because they're right. You cannot invest in your workforce or any of these things that we're probably going to talk about today if you don't have the profit and the margin, realized profit and margin, not the paper profit, but the actual cash to be able to make those investments. And you can't get it all at once. And so some of these bigger companies, what you're seeing them doing that invested, they've taken a long lifetime approach and they've built up their balance sheets by doing the work they can do at a profitable rate, such that if you do have things like 10% retainage, well, then you just can't be bidding jobs at 15%.
Correct. No, you're exactly right. And I think the biggest mistake that some of the smaller contractors get into is they take on the risk of not knowing how much cash they actually need to deliver that work. And so we're seeing overall that the big contractors, they don't get themselves into a position where they're not going to be able to deliver the work. And sometimes the smaller contractors get themselves into a fix with not having the right labor force, signing a bad contract, not having enough cash to deliver the project. And you see that throughout the industry.
Yeah. I think making that commitment, like you said, that you're going to deliver the work and doing it in a way that you know you can deliver it, which means which projects are you taking on. But like if you know it's going to take you 12 weeks to do it because then do it in 12 weeks and you bid it that way. Now, when someone asks you to do it in 6, you can't take your same plan. You're going to have to give to get. You're going to have to get something else that allow you to execute that in 6. That might be like, I can do it in 6, but you have to pay me every week. I can't do that. Okay, well then I can't deliver in 6.
Right.
You sign up for what you can do even midway through.
Yeah, no, exactly right. And what we're seeing, globally now is in Florida, clearly we have a booming construction market. Slowing down a little bit towards the end of 2025, but 2026 is going to be good. So right now, a lot of work out there, but also a lot of competition for that work. So you have GCs looking for the right number. Sometimes they might be picking the lowest number, and maybe that lowest number is somebody who's taken a risk to get a project. And one bad subcontractor on a project can really hurt the delivery and hurt a lot of other contractors.
The smaller you are in terms of where you want to go, you could be a $20 million company trying to become 100. So what I'm saying is if you're a $20 million company trying to become 100, you have to make sure you're picking the right projects. You can't afford a loss. Just like a $2 million contractor trying to get to 10 can't afford those losses. You got to find ways to pick the right customers and that you can execute on. Well, let's back up a second. So there's 2,500 plus members, suppliers, statewide. There's lots of trends. There's been lots of construction in Florida. What are the trends that are still hot? What types of projects are still hot? What types of parameters and things are going on that you think like big picture general themes?
Well, I think in general, infrastructure number one is going to be, over the next 10 to 15 years, like all the people that continue to move to Florida, infrastructure is going to be the main thing, whether it's roads, bridges, water, all of those things that we need to just survive on a daily basis. The other thing with all these people moving here is healthcare. Healthcare is another segment that will always continue to grow. We haven't even come close to meeting the demand that we need from a healthcare perspective. And with all these people coming down there, public work, schools, all of those things to be able to just meet the demands. I'm not talking about these big entertainment complexes, stadiums that you see. Those are all great projects and those are happening as well. But infrastructure, building out and meeting the demand of Florida's growing population is so pretty much all markets are good. But you're going to see a real influx on keeping up with the infrastructure right now.
Yeah. And for those of you that are not in Florida, you're in Texas or other states that are booming you're just in a town that stays consistent. These are same themes that are going to be going on in your market. Healthcare, population growth, impacts healthcare, impacts roads, impacts infrastructure. The country's getting older.
Yeah.
The older your city is, the more impactful infrastructure is. So figuring out where and how you can apply your practices in that niche.
Yeah, absolutely. And technically we're less skilled as far as the workforce goes. So, I say skilled labor, I say this all the time, is the greatest commodity right now. And the contractors who develop that skilled workforce are the ones that are going to succeed.
So which places are facing some headwinds? Which types of work, if you were focused really heavily on that, you might want to start diversifying from?
Well, I think if you're too much on one side, I think if you were, 100% invested, in private work, big developments, I think it's time to kind of diversify into maybe some public space right now, because I think that's where, when the private sector goes down, obviously interest rates, they're still not where they should be for some folks, and that means some of those big projects, some of those big private dollars, those projects can't really happen yet. But the public side is really starting to pick up. So if the contractors who are doing the best right now have a nice mix of public work and private work.
So on the public work side, what does that exactly mean? And I asked that question because I've talked to a lot of contractors like, man, that's hard to bid. It's low bid. It's complicated work. The folks that are in that have been in it a long time. Like, how do I break into it? What's the best way? And I understand this and I hear it a lot. But what I've also learned is there's a lot of ways to get into it that
Sure.
maybe are not so apparent. What are some of those?
Yeah, I think the easiest way to get into the public market now, and ABC passed a bill in Tallahassee a few years ago with continuing contracts. That means a municipality can give a contract out at the time that was anything less than $2 million. So if it's like redoing a roof or redoing HVAC unit, they could just give those projects to people that were on the continuing contracts list. Well, in Tallahassee over the last couple of years, we raised that from 2 million to 4.5, now to $7.5 million. So those are sizable projects. Yeah. So really worth the effort to actually go and talk to your local school districts, talk to your counties and your cities. They all have projects that are under the $7.5 million mark that they need to get out and get done. We have members of our association like Tampa International Airport, Hillsborough County Government. They're members of ABC because they want to be in the same room with the contractors who are going to bid their work. So fire stations, runway expansions, anything that the airport's doing, anything that the school district's doing. Those are all projects. And I think right now you're seeing some of the bigger contractors who are doing some of the private work are now dipping their toe into some of these continuing contracts just to get their foot in the door.
Yeah. And how do you become eligible for a continuing contract? Is it a list of continuing contractors or a list of continuing contracts?
Yeah, you work for every municipality. You just get on their list. So they each have different requirements to get on that list. But right now, because of the amount of work that there is, they're letting people on the list and making sure that they can actually have a list of quality contractors that are pre-qualified to do the work. And it's just talking to those municipalities and figuring out a way to get on their list.
What are you hearing from members about their confidence levels and their backlogs and the amount of work they have kind of as they move across this finish line into 26?
So I just saw a report from our national organization this week that backlog is declining a little bit, which always gets contractors a little bit antsy, even here in Florida. I think a lot of the private work was waiting on interest rates to get to a certain level. So some of them have been pushed to the beginning of 2026. But backlog is something that we monitor quite regularly. And when it gets a little bit low, contractors start getting a little finicky about, maybe they start taking a little bit more chances than they were before to try to fill that backlog. So we'll see what happens. But I think by second quarter of 2026, I think the backlog will be filled up again.
Let's go back to the actual construction contractor. Like, for example's sake, let's take your $5 to $25 million subcontractor. Okay.
Which is the majority of ABC members, by the way.
Exactly. And I think that's the majority of the folks that we're probably talking to
Right.
here. Because look, in the reality is, and you're going from zero in revenue to 5 million, there's a lot you learn there.
Yeah.
And there's a big hurdle and threshold of things that you have to cross over when you get to 5 to 25. And those are things that are all related to your business. Those are things where I call, if you were, if you're a technician that started your business as a concrete mason or flooring, whatever it is, when you cross over 5 million, that's when you really need to make the jump to business owner.
Correct.
And if you don't, this is where you start to really see problems or failures. And if there's not significant changes as you start to cross into 5 and moving on,
Yeah.
that's where real problems occur. It's where you need to start hiring your help. It's where you have to start to being able to delegate. You have to have great administrative capabilities. You have to have great financials. Great financials doesn't mean that you have like it means you have financial infrastructure. You have to have like repeatable reports that you can measure off of and making decisions off of. What and how does ABC help companies in those capacities to really start to say, okay, well, look, man, I've been moving around this trade forever. I don't know how to be a business owner that is like you're talking about.
Yep. I think two things, and we can talk about workforce development, number one. Two, safety. I think when you see a company, go from like 5 to 10 to $20 million, they have to invest in safety, performance, and making sure that they're comparing themselves to the best and the best as far as safety goes. Because, like I said, the workers are your top commodity. Like they are the ones that are driving the engine. So making sure that they are safe on the job site, making sure that you're investing in safety protocols, in safety programs that are thoughtful. So ABC helps with that, whether it's training, whether it's our STEP program that helps them create a pathway to world-class safety. Like safety is a huge investment when you're doing that next level of contracting. Also from a growing your workforce standpoint, our apprenticeship programs, they're not unemployed skilled workers out there. So you have to invest in them and you have to grow them. So you have to take chances. You have to put them into apprenticeship programs, get them trained in your skill and get them trained how you want them to work on the job site. ABC helps with that. So we're saying if you're going to take that next step, the two things that you have to do immediately: invest in safety, invest in workforce development, get your people right. And that goes from a lot of different things. Like you said, get your finances in order, make sure that you're reinvesting into benefit programs for your workers. Because right now, if you're not investing in your workers, somebody else will, and your workers will go to where people are going to invest in them.
Yeah. So as I hear you say that, you're like, look, and I call it your brand. Like if your brand is you're known for like you're a highly safe company, you produce your results. You know how to get an effective number out. You're making your customers better by not only your performance, but by the way you handle it and your workforce. You're going to draw and attract talent that says, okay, I'm going to go on safe jobs. I'm going to be well supported. I'm going to be trained. It's a growing company where I'm going to have room to grow and develop myself. That vision of my own personal goals is going to fit inside that company. So, okay, so now you're that business owner having to create all that and you've never done that before. What do you guys see or suggest that the best companies are doing that, maybe it's the company that's at that $50 million level that you watched over the last couple
And
decades?
it's something very quick in this market.
Really quick.
And I think sometimes if they don't, um, stair step and invest in those strategies when it comes to safety and workforce development, they get themselves into trouble and then they can actually go backwards, which you don't want. You want them to continue to flourish and continue to be that company that they've always wanted to kind of be. So I do think from ABC's perspective and from the leaders that we see in our industry is you're only as good as your last project. And you have to continue to create a level of being dependable, knowing that you're a company that is going to be a good partner on a job site because construction is the biggest team sport around. A project is only good as its worst sub, on that project. So you have to be able to, number one, work with other specialty contractors on job sites. Other specialty contractors, you can learn from them. You can learn their best practices. You can see, man, we're with this electrical company on this site, and they are just knocking it out of the park. Like their people are top notch. You learn from that. And the beauty about our industry is you can learn, you can create these relationships because it is the biggest relationship business out there. And knowing the contractors you want to be like is the best way to grow your company and kind of mirror some of the things that they're doing.
Yeah. We talk a lot about like the $5 million company, the $10 million company, and the 20 and so forth, 50 and bigger. But internally here at Mobilization Funding, when we're talking,
Right.
we always talk about that in the concept of, is it a 1 million? Is it a 5 million? Is it a $10 million company? On the bottom line, not the top line.
Right.
And why we talk about that is we see many companies that make $2 million a year.
Right.
And they're a $5 to $10 million company. And we see many companies that are a $20 to $30 million a year company revenue-wise, that's also a $2 million company.
Right.
And so which one would you rather own? And a lot of people would be, I want the 20 to 30 all day long. But, to make $2 million on a 20 to $30 million company, there's nothing wrong with that. And maybe it's your margins, maybe it's not. But there's a lot more people. There's a lot more stress. There's a lot more ways to screw things up. Now, on the flip side, the optimist may tell you there's a lot of opportunity there too. There's probably inefficiencies. There's probably ways to make that 2, 3 faster than there is 2 to 3 in a smaller company. But how do we shift the business owner and construction's mindset to what they're going to make? Bottom line. If everyone's spoken this is what size I am bottom line versus top line. Because you and I both know, we talked to the camera, all the corollary effects that come from that mindset. And this is the Mobilization Mindset podcast. So how do we shift that mindset to draw the conclusions that they would be able to do and make the decisions they would do without thinking top line? Because when you do make money, you can invest in your workforce. You can guarantee performance. It's a lot easier to perform on that job.
Right.
When you have the profit on your balance sheet. You can get better financing. You can get access to banking. You get access to better everything. You can walk in with your financials and lead to the GC and be like, here's why I produce and here's how I deliver and this is why. You can get bonding. So How do we change that shift?
Yeah, and I think that's a good question. And I do think in this business, I think sometimes an owner can see a project that has a lot of bells and whistles, and it's like, oh, this is the project that's going to get us over, but it also could be the project that takes you down. And you have to stick to your core principles on making sure that the project is right and you can actually continue to deliver that bottom line. Because I think from what you said, I think there are companies who are $15 million companies that are doing things exactly the right way. And that's exactly where they want to be. They don't take on bad projects. And then you see companies out there that, they like the shiny, flashy project, and that project gets them into a little bit of trouble because they don't have the bottom line to deliver for the project. So I think it's the owner's mindset, and I think the owners who understand that we can be a $15 million company. These are the projects that we excel at. This is what we're going to do. We can go a little bit above that, but in our industry, it's very easy to get attracted to the bright, shiny projects. But if you don't have the bottom line figured out first, you're going to get yourself into a world of trouble going up there.
Yeah, and when you have that bottom line in there, you don't have to push. You can be comfortable. And if I could just program anything into any construction business owner's head, it would be that one thing, because you think so much differently. And then not only do you think differently, but you also think differently when you have that support. You don't have to go into that fight or flight mode, which I think creates so much of the problem.
Sure. No, absolutely. And look, construction, it's a risky business. Contractors take on a lot of risk to build projects. So that bottom line has to be so locked in if you're going to take this much more risk.
Right. And are you going to get paid for that?
And are you going to get paid for that risk? Right.
Yeah. Think like an investor. If you're going to take on that risk, are you going to get paid for it? Right. What if anything happens? Does it get more risky?
Right.
A lot of times, even normal things that will happen on every construction job will add so much risk to something that you're already trying to razor, perfectly thread the needle on.
Yeah.
That you're screwed before you even start.
Yeah. Yeah. And you have to be willing to understand and risk mitigate as much as you can as far as what could possibly happen on these projects. And in Florida, it could be anything.
Yeah. So let's talk about how that comes into play when you're signing the type of contracts you're signing. Um, Having to go have the conversation with the GC or the owner, the feeling of when you need to do something to stand up for yourself and your workforce and your family, and that might make you look bad, or you think it might make you look bad. How do we help take that mentality and push that on top of that too? So you're not just not only taking the risk, but you're also wearing it all by yourself the whole time. As things get worse, you're not asking for help until it's too late.
Yeah. A funny story about this, and this is just my mindset in life because I was raised by great people, but my grandfather was a general contractor his whole life. He built custom homes. And one of the things he told me a long time ago is if you're going to work for free, you might as well stay home.
It's a great point, man.
You, you might as well stay home. So don't don't give away your labor. Don't give it away. And I think sometimes in some of these projects, I think sometimes we've created an environment where, maybe we give sometimes a little bit too much. And you can't do that and be successful. You can't do that long term and be successful. You have to be able to get paid for the work that you do.
Yeah. And if you get yourself in a contractual situation where you can all of a sudden be bullied by the contract, like if you walk up the job, you consider it automatic termination and now you don't get paid. Well, you got to do your best to get out of those clauses.
Right.
And if you're new to it and the person you're trying to negotiate with on the general contracting side forces that on you, well, realize they're probably doing that because they hired someone that they got hosed by that clause in the first place. And so they're going to instill on everyone. And the way you overcome that is your brand.
Yeah.
And so you got to find a way that if you're going to put yourself in that kind of risk situation where you remove the only thing that you can really use, which is not go to work,
Right.
which it only is basically then in your contractual obligations, shooting yourself in the foot. You now have no leverage in a scenario where it's impossible for you to succeed.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right.
I just think you can't do that.
You can't do that. And it starts with knowing what you're signing, right? And I think sometimes a lot of the smaller firms, they're trying to take that next step and they sign a contract and they don't know what the risks are when they sign that contract. And I think, like you said, the bottom line is the key. Make sure that your bottom line is invested in making sure that you know exactly what risk you're taking. So whether you're hiring the best construction lawyer to look at your contract before you sign it and know where the risks are, like those are the things that get contractors in the worst trouble.
Yeah. So I had a mentor tell me one time that business is like a baby. And when you're a business owner, you have to take care of the baby no matter what.
Right.
The baby can't feed itself. The baby can't go to the bathroom. The baby can't change itself. It can't do anything. And if you leave a baby unattended, it will die.
Yep.
If you don't feed the baby, it will die. You don't leave your baby unattended or hand your baby off to just anybody.
That's exactly right.
You don't let anyone come around your baby, just anyone. You assess all that. And if you take that same mentality and look at your business, you wouldn't sign a contract that would put your baby at so much risk. You wouldn't take your newborn baby and hand it to a complete stranger that you've never seen before and say, I'll be back in 10 minutes.
Yep.
So you don't take your baby and leave it in a hot car. You wouldn't take one of your employees and put them in a hole without proper safety or put them on a roof without proper safety. So if you just adopt that mentality, making those decisions or knowing what the right answer is can become real easy. I'm not saying it's knowing the decision becomes easy. I'm not saying executing it becomes easy, but it is the right decision and you have to find ways to execute it as the business owner.
Yeah.
Or honestly, you should just be an employee of someone else.
Yeah. You're exactly right. And you have to.
And that's okay too.
Yeah, and that's fine.
By the way, that's okay.
And that's fine. And there's a lot of folks out there who are very skilled at what they do, whether they're skilled electricians and plumbers who are just happy being a skilled electrician and plumber. They don't want to be the company owner. They want to deliver work, and that's fine. But you're right. If you're going to take the risk of being an owner, you do have to treat it like it's a child, like it's a baby, that, and invest in that and making sure that you're not putting your baby in a very bad position.
Yeah. And so if you take that one step further and you're the project manager, you're the project superintendent, you're not the business owner, but you're working for a business owner who you obviously, I hope you like. I hope you admire someone that you took their job at one point or another, you liked it, you thought it was good. That's how you can help them. You don't have to be the owner and take on the risk, but if you can think like that, just like that, you can help them be a better owner, which will help you be a better employee, which will help your team that you're leading or you're managing. If you're the estimator, how are you putting you and your baby,
Yeah.
this baby you're going to hand off to the owner that you hopefully are going to put your entire team and all your teammates on? How can you bid that project and estimate that project and point out the risks and appropriately price the risks and say, hey, look, this is just what it's going to cost for us to maintain our standards of performance at our brand, to make sure our baby is going to be okay. Now it's up to the owner to go sell that project at that cost, but now they know at least what can be profitable.
Yeah. And I think you hit the nail on the head. I think every one of like the best of the best in our industry, from their frontline employee to their middle management to the owner, that's the mindset that they have. Like, how are we going to deliver? We're not going to put our baby in a bad position. We're going to deliver this project in a way that takes care of the whole entire business, because I think that's important. So I do think the best of the best, that's how their employees work, from the front line all the way up to the top.
All right. So shifting gears, the labor force.
Yeah.
All right. I hear all the time, and I'm sure you do too, look, we can get all the work, but we just can't get the labor to do it.
Yeah.
What are the best of the best doing?
Well, the best of the best aren't, they're not taking on too much. So they're trying to deliver quality projects with the labor force that they have. And while they're delivering, they're actually continuing to grow their labor force, because you can't just be set on, I think we have 45% of our workforce is over the age of 45. So, that's telling. So we have to continue to build that pipeline. So I think the best of the best contractors aren't taking on too much, but as they're not taking on too much, they're continuing to invest in building their pipeline of skilled workers.
Yeah. And what that looks like, I've seen with good businesses, are they're going into your local college, your local high schools even sooner. And they're creating ways to do the old school workshops that we used to have when we grew up, but that aren't there anymore. They're hiring them and giving them opportunities to build things. They're teaching them how to build tree houses. They're just getting them in and around the accomplishment of construction. Maybe it's not even part of what you do.
Yeah.
But like building a tree house, how can that help a structural concrete guy? Well, you get used to building with your hands. You know what it's like. You're like, wow, I didn't realize this was the case. And you also create awareness of like, what is that job like? Well, I felt good doing that. Okay, I like doing things I feel good at. What does someone like that make? What does it cost? What can they expectation? Now you're solving some of those stigmas that are out there, like you can't make money or you don't make money. Some of these people, it's the fastest way to make six figures is in construction.
It's the fastest way to own your own business. It's the fastest way to, being a millionaire. I tell that to people all the time. And I think that's changing. I do think, because we've been preaching it for so long, that I do think the narrative is changing a little bit. It's coming around slower than it needs to be. But I do think people are looking around and saying, maybe the ROI, for getting my master's degree isn't there, but the ROI for becoming an electrician is way better.
Yeah, I agree. Tell me about some of the legislative landscape and policy impacts that you guys are trying to focus on now here at ABC in Florida that might transcend other places too.
So this one is something that came up in our planning conference, the very last 10 minutes before we broke. Somebody was like, with all the prefab that's happening now in the industry, because prefabrication is the future of the construction industry. But right now in Florida, when you do prefab at your office, you actually have to pay sales tax on the labor that creates that prefab work. But you don't have to pay sales tax. They actually do it on the job site, which defeats the whole entire purpose. So it's one of the things that we're working on this year in Tallahassee is to actually, let's try to eliminate that sales tax on prefab work, because that is what we see as the future of our industry. Let's eliminate that. And if we eliminate that tax, you might see, some of the prices in construction go down a little bit, especially here in the state of Florida. So that's one thing that just popped up that we're going to try to work to get solved this year. The other thing, and this is something that is a risk factor that not a lot of people think of, but speed to permit. The permitting process in Florida is broken. It's broken in a way that if we don't start figuring out a way to streamline it and make it more effective, that's going to be the Achilles heel to our growth as a state.
Yeah, and why? And if I was in the permitting office, I'd be like, why is this cost so much? Well, you got to acquire the property before you try to get the permit, and if you're trying to carry the property, it has a pretty hefty monthly price tag. So you could draw a straight hard cost to exactly what the permitting process delays cost, and I don't know if everyone understands that, and that slows it down. Now you take interest rates and go up, which increases cap rates. And now the projects become unprofitable and undeveloped, and it could very well be the problem with all three of those things. But as rates come down and as cap rates get impacted and as pricing comes down, but yet development still isn't there, people are pricing in these huge permitting delays, which is all carry cost.
It's all carry.
And you've got to move the permitting process. That's something that should be well streamed. We've been issuing permits for, I don't know, hundreds of years now. So it should be.
And it's great if you're in a market where there's not a lot of activity. It's unacceptable here in Florida at this point, with the amount of infrastructure needs, with the amount of stuff that needs to be built, to wait 6 months to 12 months for a permit is. It's an unacceptable practice, and we need to figure out a way to streamline it.
So let's say it takes 6 to 12 months to get a permit. So let's just take the short end, 6 months. How much time is actually spent on that packet before permits issued? Is it hours? Is it a week? How much is someone touching that internally before they issue a permit?
Well, from a local government's perspective, you mean? To me, look, I've seen technology where you can feed the plans into AI, and it spits out all of the problems with it initially. You can get it fixed in 30 seconds in AI. Do it the right way. It's just sitting on people's desk, and it's not a local government has not invested in that type of technology. Nobody is sitting around wanting to be a plan reviewer. Right? They can't staff it fast enough. You look at the city of Tampa and the amount of permits they have, and you look at Hillsborough County and all of the beach communities, all different permitting departments. Like what are we waiting for here? We know that we have to build this on this project. Just being able to build something on a piece of land requires a lot of permitting in general. But now, once something is approved to be built there, we need to speed that process up because it's putting our labor force at risk. It's putting a lot of things at risk. It's putting people wanting to develop here and move their businesses here. When you see that, you're like, oh, I'm looking at Florida and looking at Tampa, and then I'm looking at Austin. Austin, I can get in my building in 3 months. Florida is going to take me 6 to 7 months. It's a no-brainer. You're going to Austin.
100%.
Yeah.
And all things are equal, you're making that choice. A smart person that's thinking like an investor with the right mindset it makes the decision super easy.
Right.
The aftermath of that, though, too, for the local business owner, why is that? Okay, well, we're losing some projects. We're gaining some, too. Okay, but great. But here's the local businesses already existing here who are going to be doing that work. They're hoping that project comes out of the ground. They're holding on to their current labor force, their current employees. Round numbers, let's just say it's a great, healthy, big company. They got $100,000 a week payroll.
Right.
2 weeks goes by, a 2-week delay, and you're holding on to half those employees or a quarter, okay? All of a sudden, that's a $25,000 a week cost because what maybe it takes 2 months. That's 8 weeks. Now you're at $200,000 in cash that you're just holding on to employees for because you don't want to lose them or you're forced. Or worse, you take a business owner who's treating their business like a baby and they're like, sorry, I got to let you go and furlough those patients. Now you have however many people into unemployment, which has an additional cost back to the same municipality
Right.
that the delay is caused because they can't get their bureaucracy moving.
Yeah, and I just don't think they understand the ramifications. And I could talk to local government till I'm blue in the face, and it shouldn't take, me calling down to the building department to see why something isn't isn't done yet. Like the permitting process, we have plenty of people in the state of Florida who are licensed to do inspections and plan reviews. Like, let's embrace private providers. Let's embrace, technology. Let's bring these permits to a timely scope, so we can get people to work. We can continue to work. We can continue to grow, because that's the biggest thing, especially when it comes down to a project where there's already risk. You add a 2-week delay, that's an unnecessary delay to a project, just like you said. It makes things very, very difficult.
And people's profits are getting shot, and who's paying for it?
Right.
Yeah, and then what happens is everybody starts de-risking themselves somehow,
Right.
or pushing off the cost somehow, which ultimately usually gets pushed downhill.
Yep.
And then the same folks that we're all trying to help the most, which is the smaller businesses or mid-sized businesses, and I'm talking about those $5 to $15 million businesses who employ a majority of the people in a community,
Right.
are now the ones getting hurt the most.
They are the ones that get hurt the most. And I tell people this. I tell this to the building departments all the time. I said, you are keeping somebody from actually getting a paycheck right now. It's not like the big developer. It's not the big project owner. It's the actual electrician who can't work today because you can't get the permit done on time. You can't get the inspection done on time. Like, you are keeping regular people from earning a living.
And the department down 2 floors from you just has 2 more people in there.
Right.
That your cost our system more money because you're not doing your job.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
connecting those dots is something that I just don't know how to better do it, but it's just so accurate. And it's in the same building.
Same building. Same building. A plan can be on somebody's desk for 2 weeks and not even get looked at. That's 2 weeks that somebody can't work.
So you've touched on AI in the building department, right?
Yeah.
And AI can be put all across construction, robotics, 3D printing. There's so much technology out there. I did a TEDx talk last year about technology and attracting the workforce. There's so many things about technology and construction that can benefit the industry.
Yeah.
Hurt it too.
Yeah.
But benefit it. Which ones and what things do you see the best companies implementing, and how are they using them?
I think technology is changing so fast. And because of our labor shortage, you're seeing an adoption of technology at a pretty rapid pace in our industry. And our industry has never been one to adopt technology at a rapid pace, but we're having to do so out of necessity. So what I'm seeing is that um, we're seeing the large general contractors doing a lot of investment in, project management tools, in AI tools, in project delivery tools. Like, that is where it's kind of being driven at. But you're seeing some of the $5 to $15 million companies starting to dip their toe into at least getting an idea of what they should be thinking about, right? They don't need to overly invest at this point, because I think the the industry is going to vet out what works and what's efficient. But I think it's changing. I think prefab is the wave of the future. How we can build things offsite and then just put them together on a job site. I think you're seeing prefab is the number one thing that I think, yeah, I would say, as far as technology goes, I think prefab is in placeholder number one. Two is, how can AI make us smarter? And being able to scope out, some of the logistics beforehand. But in the end, AI can't run conduit or pipe or, or put in a light socket, so we still need those skilled workers to be able to deliver. It's going to make their jobs safer. It's going to make their jobs more efficient. But it's not going to do away with the skilled worker on a job site.
So I agree with you. I like to frame it up like this when I'm asking that question. One, first and foremost, don't get roped into someone trying to build you a custom AI tool.
Right.
That is not the investment you should make, in my humble opinion.
Agreed.
What you should do, though, is take the AI tools out there, even something as simple as ChatGPT
Yeah.
or Grok or any of them. Don't take the mindset of I'm going to use AI to help my current employees be better and be more efficient and enjoy their job more so that I can actually make them more efficient and profitable and I can pay them more. Don't think of AI as how do I replace the human, but how do I take the humans I actually have and help them do more and better of the things that have their brain on the job versus all the tedious BS tasks that drives every employee in every business, and no matter what they do, to the umpteenth degree, whether it's your accountant or whether it's your estimator. How do you create a set of plans for someone that they can just look at it and spend real time thinking, right? Or your estimator putting real cost to what they design and then putting thinking about it, right?
Yeah.
Those are the AI tools that you can use, and those are things that are free almost.
Yeah, they're free. And I think you're seeing that investment. I think you're seeing project managers just getting a leg up with maybe an idea that was sparked from putting something into AI and that they didn't think about before. I think you still need that human intelligence that knows how to build something the right way, right? But using AI to put them in a position where um, it can lay things out in a different way, make them more efficient, let them use their brains on things that are really going to help deliver.
Yeah, I like the way you said lay it out.
Yeah.
Let AI set the table for you, and you can look at the table and be like, "All right, I like how that's set. No, we need to move this over here." But sometimes you get so stuck in the weeds of where the plate went, where the fork goes,
Right.
that you created the fork to put there, and then you can't even look at the table because you're running late, and now you're running delays, and you're just trying to turn it in last minute. That's where AI can speed things up
Right.
for you then to take your patience and time, and the human element really goes back to where it was.
Well, and it also helps you track your costs too, right? And that's one of the things that, your folks have done a really good job of making sure that, when people take on these projects how much is it going to cost to deliver this work? And I think AI can help with that as well.
Yeah, and the investments, you're right. And we that's where we've implemented our AI too, is like now you can go on our website and use that cash flow tool. And it literally, by just literally answering questions that is right off your bid sheet, it puts it into an analysis for you with a full breakdown of how it gets used, what it costs. So if you have that job, any job, just your basic job, and you've built in your specific margin to it, how much money do you have to invest to
Right.
make that margin? Is it 100% of the cost of the job? Is it only 20? Is it 50? Well, that all changes based on what your contractual terms are, what the practical terms are. What does that customer pay on time? Does that owner developer pay on time? What's delays? All those things you can start to build into those and see, oh, you know what? Well, if I'm going to invest $500,000 of costs into the project to make $200,000, that's a 40% return. Okay,
Right.
great. But what if I have to invest $900,000 of costs? Well, it's not as good of a return, but here's the real problem. I don't have $900,000 to get out there. I only have 500. So now you can start making some real moves and figuring, okay, well, what do I need to do to stay within the bandwidth I have to actually invest into the job or cash to use?
Yeah, and I think the companies that are investing in letting their people experiment with AI in a way that makes them more productive, I think those people are going to have a leg up moving forward.
And by the way, that's how you can attract the younger workforce in too.
100%.
Who these folks are geniuses with this. They've been, the older workforce didn't grow up with an iPhone and a supercomputer in your hand. The younger workforce is very accustomed to that, adept to taking on technology. You're comfortable with it too, and so those are the ways you can grow your workforce by bringing in by bringing in new talent, bringing in a new age group, and really, and also highlighting ways that's going to make it attractive to them. It's not just a shovel anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I say this all the time, and it's one of the greatest things that this business has to offer is the final project. What a building looks like when it's done. Like everyone who worked on that project, whether they're project manager, whether they're the electrician, like I helped build that. Like that's the one thing construction has on anything else is that at the end of the day, everyone can say, "Look what we built. Look what that." And I think that is what kind of is going to attract the the next generation, and to be able to use technology and then to have that outcome where you're saying, man, we built that and I built that using, you know, AI helped me do this. And, so I think that's the wave of the future. And construction's always had that wow factor at the end of a project.
Yeah. So now thinking back on what we've talked about here, all of that said, you're going to get yourself into some problems every once in a while.
Sure.
And recognizing you're about to get in a problem is the first step of success. When you're in one, realizing you're in it is second. Third is whatever you do, don't make it worse.
Stop digging.
Stop. Yeah. So that said, what do the best companies do or people do that you've seen? They get themselves into a project. Maybe it's any project, but they get themselves into a problem. Maybe it's of their own doing. Maybe it has nothing to do with them, but some variable factor has changed on that project that is going to create a problem or has put them in a problem.
Yeah.
What do they do?
Yeah, and I think because this industry is so relationship driven, right? So if it's a problem of your own doing, you got to own the problem and you have to have a solution for it. You have to figure out a way to get yourself out of the problem that protects your reputation as a company, because that's the only thing you have in this business at the end of the day is your reputation. If it's somebody else's problem and you can help solve their problem, that's the benefit. That's something that you have to think about doing. So, if you're the plumbing sub and there's an electrical problem and if there's some way that you can help him or help them, you got to do it. And I think from a GC perspective, if you put a specialty contractor in a bad spot, whether it's scheduling or something bad happened, you have to make it right because this is a relationship driven business. And the ones who survive are the ones who understand that this is a team sport and you're either part of the team or you're not part of the team. And if you're not part of the team, um, you're going to have a short lifespan in this industry.
Yeah. And so one thing I want to talk about on that too is if you're a specialty contractor and you get into a problem, don't assume that everyone knows you're in a problem.
That's correct.
Yep. And just like if a general contractor, a project manager, superintendent puts you into a problem, don't assume that they know they put you into that problem either.
Right.
They might not. Make sure they know that this decision is okay, but it's created this problem or is creating this problem. And this is what they need to do to help you, or here's what the solution you can do to help me, or this is going to create a problem and now it's going to trickle down in this manner. Because they very well likely didn't make that intentfully to hurt anyone. They probably were trying to solve one problem and just didn't see the rest of the picture.
Yeah. And no bad news ever ages well, right? No. Bad news doesn't age well. So figuring out that you have the problem and then communicating that to all partners involved to help solve the problem. I think that makes you a team player. I think that protects your reputation. I think that is what those are the types of people want to work for and with.
So now what happens when you bring that up and the project manager gets real guarded because they start thinking selfishly and this is going to look bad for me and I don't want to get in trouble. So they start cramming down and I'll call it bullying or whatever you want to call it. How do you and when do you know to take it above that and how fast do you do it? Meaning take it to the office of the general contractor and not the field office.
I think if it gets to a point where you need to escalate to whoever is the next step above that. There's a whole industry out there of construction lawyers who can work this out on the back end. But I think it's the companies who work it out on the front end between each other are the ones that make it. Like I said, you have to be able to solve the problem on the job site. If you can't solve it there, if things go sideways and it ends up with attorneys, you already lost. It's never good.
The industry that's more frustrating than construction is the attorney and our court system. It is not going to favorably help anyone. You can be the most right on the earth. You're gonna feel like nothing but losing for way too long, and it's only going to create more problems. And I promise you that's true. Just take it from me.
Yeah, and the companies that are around a long time, they understand that, and they want to solve the problems. They don't want to take that project and pass it on to the next project or pass it on to attorneys. They want to solve the problem as best they can, get the situation resolved to a point where everyone is at least satisfied, and then just deliver quality work.
Yeah, ask for what you need up front.
Yeah.
And then ask for what you need if something changes. And look, if you're a subcontractor and you can't afford to fix the mistake that you made, tell the general contractor fast and early and ask them for their help and do the best you possibly can. You might never get a job from them again. Right. You might not get one for a while. But if you can fix that problem for them and tell them what it's going to cost, even if they have to give you money and you do it in a productive way, they'd rather do that. At the end of the day, they are taking on all of the risk of the project, and they're trying to offload it to you. But if you fail, they're ultimately going to have to pick it up.
Right.
And so they give them an opportunity to pick it up as fast as they possibly can with the most minimal amount of cost while you're still in the game helping them do it.
Yeah.
And it might not feel good, and you might get yelled at, but you will be looked upon better when it's all said and done.
Oh,
if you didn't.
100%.
Yeah.
Solving those challenges on the job site are way better for your brand as a company.
Yeah, because you can be everyone's going to screw up. How did you act when you screwed up? And man, you can be trusted when you go back in there later and tell them that everything's okay.
Yeah.
Before you go back in there later, you're like, hey, this is going to be a problem, and here's how we can fix it now.
Yeah.
You can be trusted in that moment. So, all right, wrapping this up.
Okay.
What are some of the 2 or 3 takeaways you'd say right now if you've done nothing to prepare for 2026 and you're listening to this, then someone's got the oh shit meter hitting them? What are the 3 things you think, okay, do this?
I think you look yourself in the mirror, and I think you figure out, are you doing right by your employees going into 2026? Do we have the foundation? Do we have the mechanisms in place to be able to deliver a satisfied, skilled workforce moving into 2026? I think that's number one. I think they are the most valuable asset that you have as a company owner, and making sure that those people are taken care of and ready, because I think first quarter, second quarter of 2026, there's going to be a lot of work going on. You're going to see a lot of movement, lots of different types of projects, and you have to make sure that you are building your workforce.
Focus on performance. And what I mean by that is, first, know what your company can do well.
Yep.
That's the size of the project, the location of the project, the type of the project, the resources you have. Be really hard honest about that. Like if you can make up your entire backlog and work of these exact size projects that you could succeed well, what do they look like? And then see how many of those you actually have.
Yeah.
And then work to go after those and focus on performing those well and making them profitable, and then start to expand piece by piece, one step at a time. And 5 years from now, you'll have a really well-grown company that is profitable, that can invest in its employees and can invest in technology, and 5 years goes by in a long time.
Oh, no, I agree with you 100%. I think companies right now going into 2026, there's going to be so much work that you have to play to your strengths. You have to know what you do well and be able to deliver that, and then expand on what you do well. Don't try to take risk on things that might look bright and shiny. Definitely play to your strengths, because that's the only thing that's going to get us as an industry through, all the work and all the growth that we're about to experience.
And I love it. So if your business was a brand new baby, would you do it?
Yeah.
Whatever it is.
Would I put my baby in that? Would I let them watch my baby? Right.
Exactly. Steve, man, thank you very much for coming back in. I think this is great. We did good wrap. 25, 26 is going to be a big year. There's going to be lots of opportunity. Like every year, there's going to be massive winners and massive losers, and we're trying to help you be on the winning side.
100%.
Well, everybody, that's a wrap. I hope you liked this episode. I hope you found value in it. I'm sure you did. And if you did, I ask you to please share that show. Come back, check out ABC's website. There's lots of information. There's lots of training, education. You can find all of these things that Steve's talked about right there on the website. At mobilizationfunding.com, you have the tools, you have education, you have people, you have this recap. You can do a lot there. Go to our website, go to our YouTube channel, And in the meantime, have a great week. Enjoy 2026, and may God bless you.